Alright folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, I woke up and this morning getting ready to make a video and got a 911 call dispatched to a medical call. I'm just now returning back home or heading home from that. So that's why I'm a little late on the video this morning. We had to land a helicopter to get a patient to one of the regional hospitals around. And took a little longer than I expected, but so that's the reason why I'm late on the video. Last night we did a live stream, our normal weekly Saturday night live stream. Went really good. If you missed it, you can go back and watch the rerun. It's here on YouTube and should be over on Rumble also. But we talked about EMPs, Faraday cages, solar systems, because there's a lot of talk right now because of this whole Russia thing. You know, Russia has decided to put weapons in space, and the talk is that they're EMP weapons to maybe take out our satellites, take out the grid, all this kind of stuff. And so there was a lot of questions about that, of what people should be doing, what you should put into a Faraday cage. My advice last night, and it stays, and it's always been this advice, is yes, it is good to have things put away in a Faraday cage. It's good to have backups like that. But really, one of your contingency plans should be, how to exist without all that. Because depending on the scenario, and the fact that none of us have ever gone through an EMP, something like that, we don't really know what to expect. There's depending on who you read, what experts you listen to or read. I've heard anywhere from, the newer stuff will be fine. New vehicles will get through an EMP, CME fine, or the small electronics are so small that they won't be affected by it, all the way up to everything could be affected. Even military hardened equipment is outdated hardened, and it's based on smaller EMPs that were developed, back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and this new stuff that China and Russia are trying to develop is far more powerful, and even military hardened assets will be destroyed by. So I've heard both ends of the spectrum, and the reality is you and I, we just don't know. So my first bit of advice, if you're planning on that, and when I say CME, that's the coronal mass ejection. If you have not been paying attention, the sun has been putting out recently in the last couple of weeks, put out several X-class solar flares, which, that's where you're getting into the damaging ones. They're not big enough, obviously, to knock things out. They kind of interfere with radio waves for a little bit, but it's been putting out a lot. So the possibility of a big solar flare knocking things out is increasing also. So how do we prepare for that? Well, number one, like I said, you just need to learn and have a plan to live without things. I know that sounds like the worst plan possible. We're all so... Everyone is. Some of us are more than others, but every one of us are connected to modern technology in some way, form, or fashion. We utilize it, we become used to it, we become dependent on it. And so we need to have a plan that makes us less dependent on it. Are you capable of doing things simple, primitive, non-electronic, non-technological? I use it as an example all the time because it's a good one. We burn wood for heat. We heat solely with wood. And yeah, I use chainsaws and log splitters sometimes. Sometimes we do it by hand, but I have that. And while those, like a chainsaw, will probably be okay during an EMP, the fuel to get it may not be. I may not be able to get the fuel to run my chainsaw if an EMP happens. If I need to get a new chain or a new spark plug or something like that, I may not be able to get those if there's an EMP and everything kind of collapses and shuts down. So my backup is I have saws and axes to do the job. Do I use those now? Of course not. Occasionally, just to kind of keep the skills honed. But that's not what we do predominantly. And I don't want to, but if I had to, we have the ability to do that. And so that's how I tell people that you should probably prepare. Have things on hand. Think about it. How can you keep your food refrigerated? Because people did keep food refrigerated, cold, before we had modern electronics. How can you do that? Think about it. Do you have a creek, a spring, build a little spring box to put things in, dig a hole, a cellar? There's all sorts of alternatives to that. And so that's the line of thinking that I want to encourage most of you to do. And then also with Faraday cages, those are good, whether you have them, a Faraday cage, or you bury it in the ground. If you bury it in the ground, you probably want to have it at least 18 inches below the surface, just to be on the safe side. And for that, I would put communication stuff in. I would put communications and any digital documentation to have, ham radios, scanners, police scanners, that kind of stuff, CB radios. I would put some of those in. And I know that you're thinking, well, that's stuff I have to buy. You can purchase them pretty cheaply. You can purchase some ham radios for 20, 25 bucks a piece. They're not that expensive. And so I would have that kind of stuff put away. For a Faraday cage, you're not going to be able to put everything. I know that there's stuff like EMP shield. I talked about that last night. From my research and talking to a couple of people that are very knowledgeable in that field, I'm not too confident that those things will work. I could be wrong, but I'm just not personally that confident in them. So for me and my family, our backup plan for an EMP is to try to do things as simply as possible. So we have a lot of things, say for instance, kitchen utensils, not utensils, but kitchen appliances and stuff. We have things that we've purchased at Amish stores where they're non-electric. And so like mixers, blenders, things like that. We have hand crank stuff. We have the ability to can our food without, electronics and stuff. So that we're able to produce food, preserve food, make food. Water is the same way. Create, firewood to heat and to cook with. Look to the basic stuff. And so we should be trying to develop a contingency plan that will get us back to those basics. It's not something you're going to use every day. You shouldn't be, I wouldn't advise people to necessarily live that way right now. Utilize the technology as long as you can, because every time you're utilizing it, if you're doing it correctly, you're making yourself more prepared. But always have that contingency, that backup plan for when that rug gets pulled out from underneath you. And so really that's what we should be doing as homesteaders, as prepared homesteaders, is learning how to be as self-sufficient as possible, but also doing it from a very non-technology, pre-industrial way. I use it as an example all the time because I think it's a really good one. Look at the TV show Little House on the Prairie. If you can develop your homestead that its fallback is kind of in the Little House on the Prairie homestead era, then you'll do pretty good. Being able to produce food and to preserve it and to sanitize things without electricity, you're going to be going pretty good. I do think that we should be doing this. When you look at the movie a few months ago from the Obamas about the cyber attack that shuts everything down, and then now you've got this emergency, highly classified reading in of all of this, Russia EMP, destroyed the grid kind of thing. The Chinese, illegals coming across the border. But when you put it all together, yeah, it's very possible that that's where we're headed. And so I think that every one of you should be trying to figure out what you can do. It's going to be different for all of you. Some of you, it's going to be pretty easy because you already live fairly simple, maybe even off-grid out in the country. And then the rest of you, it may be quite difficult because maybe you're still living in the city in an apartment in the suburbs. Either way, there are ways to do it. It's going to be different for all of you, but certainly start thinking, doing the research, if you haven't already, on how that you can live as simple as possible, because that may be what we see. I don't know. I'm not making predictions. I'm just saying that may be what we see. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.